All right, guys, welcome into the Kodiak Broncos Podcast. I'm the Kodiak, and today I'm here to talk about the 10 guys that I want the Broncos to draft in the 2025 NFL Draft, where I think they should go with the first round pick. But before we get into it, I just want to say a couple things. First of all, leave a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're not already, drop a comment, let me know what you're thinking as far as what the Broncos should do with number 20. If you've been following my content, you probably know where I'm going with this. But yeah, so let's get right into it. So first of all, Genty or Warren, they would be number one on my list if I thought they'd be available, but I don't think so. I have to be realistic with who I put on here, and both would be number one if I thought they'd be available. And there was a little time where I thought that Genty could fall, but there's too much smoke about him going to number 6 to the Raiders, number 10 to Chicago. So not happening anymore. We could always trade up for him, and Sean Payton has shown a propensity to not be scared to trade up if he does view someone as his guy. But I'm not banking on it. I'm still not going to peg them as realistic dudes for our pick in the first round, even if it's not at number 20. Now, not related, I do think Warren has a better chance of falling than Genty, but I don't think it's going to happen to our pick. Like, I still think both these dudes are going to be top 10 picks, so yeah. Number 10, Jahdae Barron. So, first of all, if we were to need a defensive back, then I would love Barron. He could line up anywhere in the secondary. He could line up, slot. He could play on the outside as well, and he would fix what was a big problem with our defense last year, which is when we had to play zone coverage when Riley Moss was not there. We were terrible. And granted, Dre Greenlaw coming in will help that. Talanoa Hufanga coming in will help that to replace PJ Locke and, Cody Barton and Justin Strnad, respectively. But ultimately, our zone defense was still really, really bad. And, it carries the responsibility of everybody on the team who let that happen. So, with Barron, I think it would give us the no-fly zone 2.0. And with our pass rush that led the league in sacks with 63, it would be mega awesome. So I'm all for drafting on strength and best player available. But listen, you're just kind of crowding the room at this point. It's just like, all right, where do we play Riley Moss? What happens to J-Mac? What is Chris Haven's drained role? It would just lead to more questions than answers, at least I think, even if our secondary would be awesome and it'd be really, really hard for opposing quarterbacks to throw on us. But yeah. Once again, this is an over-extrapolation of resources. I trust Jim Leonard to tap into the later rounds if we do decide to go with the cornerback, because I think we will. I mean, we do every single draft, but yeah. So, number 9, Tetairoa McMillan. So, listen, I think the I don't watch film thing is pretty overblown, and it won't affect his stock that much. Granted, I do think it will affect his stock a little bit. I think, for a team like us, I could see the Broncos looking at that clip specifically and being like, all right, well, if he doesn't watch film, we've had high character dudes and dudes who love football be an instrumental part of our turnaround. So I could see the Broncos looking at that and being like, yeah, no, we're just not doing this. And I think it'd be completely valid. I think it would be completely fine if the Broncos decided to go away from that just because of that alone. But that interview needs more context, man. Like, why is he just chowing down in a dining hall? Why is he, kind of being dismissive towards the reporters? I honestly don't think it's anything substantial, especially because it happened after his freshman year a few years ago. But yeah, so I still like him, despite the fact that he's getting soured on as of late. I think a lot of the recent, not hate, but just discourse towards McMillan is just based on the fact that a lot of people had him as a top 10 pick coming into this year. And he had basically one good game in week 1 against, I think, New Mexico State. Can't remember who it was. I remember watching the game live, and I remember the opposing quarterback was nasty, but I digress. So, he didn't really have that great of a year. Arizona, in particular, just really fell off. Fafita just had a horrible year. And I think for a guy like Tetairoa McMillan, who's 6'4", 220, and he tracks as a good enough separator, like pretty much all the film guys that I look at, they say that he's a good enough separator. And that's something I'm completely fine with. Even though he doesn't play quite to his size, I think there are a few wide receivers who don't even play to their size. Like London, he's not yes, he's absolutely phenomenal, but I don't think of him as like a big body dude who's just out there being physical and mossing guys. So like a big bodied X possession receiver, I do think that that'd be fantastic for our team. Even if we move off of Courtland Sutton, and I think with Courtland Sutton and Tetairoa McMillan, you'd have a huge size mismatch on the outside. So yeah, I also think Court would be a really good mentor for him. But yeah, number 8, Matthew Golden, wide receiver. I see him very similar stylistically to guys like Olave and Garrett Wilson, 2 Ohio State wide receivers who you just look at them and you're just like, how are they open so often? You're just like, wow, these dudes just get open. There's no other way to explain it. I really like Matthew Golden, he's very fluid. He has great snap. He has great hip flexibility. Like, he absolutely cooks opposing defensive backs, and it's just absolutely absurd when you watch what he's able to do. He's filthy. He's filthy, and he has great hands plus catch strength. So I could see him being really, really good in the NFL. I could see him being a really, really good player for the Denver Broncos if we were to draft him as well. One thing I will say about him is that he also doesn't play 4.29 fast. I do think he was held back by Isaiah Bond being the number one wide receiver. Quinn Ewers didn't really like him as a quarterback, and a gimmicky Texas offense where they ran a lot of RPOs. And anytime Golden did get an opportunity, he did pretty well. What I will say is that it's just a little odd to me that he didn't earn targets at the rate of his teammates like Isaiah Bond and Gunnar Helm. And I actually think he was 5th in Texas on the Texas roster as far as yards or targets per route run. His best season as far as yards per team pass attempt was 1.82. His first downs per route run as far as the best was 0.105. First downs per route run 0.08. Yards per route run best 2.10. Yards per route run throughout his career 1.85. These metrics, they're just not that good. So I'm still kind of in the belief that you do need a lot of analytics to track if you do want to be a high pick in the NFL draft. But I don't know, film don't lie, so that's where I'll give the Golden stands on that one. Number 7, TreVeyon Henderson, running back. So he runs like he has rockets strapped to his feet. And one thing that I think the Broncos will really, really fall in love with is the fact that he punishes in pass protection. Like, Sean Payton's going to look at that and he's going to be like, yeah, that's our dude. That's our guy. Because if you give him a hole, he's absolutely gone. He's absolutely gone. I think he has the fastest 0 to 60 time of the whole class. A great receiver as well. And stylistically, I think that TreVeyon Henderson fits what Sean Payton wants to do, basically more than any other running back in the class besides Genty. Now, the only question with a running back like TreVeyon Henderson is, value-wise, is he worth it? Maybe. But I'm not convinced he's a true workhorse yet. Granted, this is something you either have or you don't. And it's really hard to look at a guy who split a bunch of touches in college and be like, yeah, he could be our workhorse. Maybe he needs a guy like Judkins behind or ahead of him to succeed, or not ahead of him, but maybe he just needs a split backfield to succeed. And the first round is pretty much reserved for true 3-down workhorses in the NFL. And is TreVeyon Henderson that? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not going to say he can or can't be, but stylistically, I just think that his game is awesome. His game is awesome. He runs really, really fast. He's very fluid. He can also catch out of the backfield. So I think if he were to be a member of the Denver Broncos, he would be a really, really nice addition from day one, and he'd be absolutely phenomenal. High character dude once again. And yeah. Number 6, Omarion Hampton. So this is where we get a true 3-down guy who's a dynamic receiving weapon. And he has every aspect of what you want when you're looking for a lead back. He has good vision. He's a good receiver. He has a lot of tackle. He has a lot of tackle breaking ability as well, and I think he would fix our short yardage woes. So if you were to find a guy who's basically packaged into all the things that the Broncos need, I think Omarion Hampton is what you would be looking for as well. My favorite draft analysts have compared him to Josh Jacobs, but Omarion Hampton is faster. Josh Jacobs' top game speed is 20.46, which is what he hit on the overtime run that he had against the Seahawks 3 years ago. You guys remember that, where it was like an 80-yard walk-off touchdown? Omarion Hampton, his game speed, I believe his top game speed has been clocked at 21.2. So Omarion Hampton is faster than Josh Jacobs. A lot of people have said that he's going to go a lot higher than number 20. And nothing would surprise me anymore, because a lot of people are getting flashbacks to the Bijan Gibbs draft where they went, literally 4 picks apart. And maybe that happens because if Genty goes to the Raiders at number 6, Ben Johnson, he has shown a propensity to not be scared to take a running back high or whatever, and the Bears own the number 10 pick, and maybe Omarion Hampton is a better fit for them. But once again, I still think that he'd be a pretty good member of the Orange and Blue. Is he worth it value-wise? I mean, we'll see. But I still think we have other areas of our team to improve upon before we can dip into running back, and I'd prefer for us to wait. Number 5, trade back. So this is kind of cheating, but if all 4 of these guys are off the board, we should trade back. Now, hopefully a team falls in love with Dart or Milrow and can jump Pittsburgh for a pick, because Pittsburgh has been very heavily, circled, highlighted, starred, squared for a team that is potentially going to kick the tires on a quarterback in round 1. They did it in the same range in 2022 with Kenny Pickett. Now, granted, you're probably going to get a better quarterback prospect than Kenny Pickett, but we've built a really nice team missing a lot of resources. So if we were to trade back, I would love for this team to get more picks. I would love for this team to add an extra top 100 pick or two. My pipe dream is that we can get 26 plus 90th from the Rams, and then maybe we use that to draft Trevion Henderson. But unfortunately, Sean Payton has never traded back in the first, so this is probably not happening. Like, it's just not within his tendency to do so. If George Payton can work something out, then maybe, but we'll see. Number 4, Colston Loveland. So we still need a dynamic inline guy. Ingram is more of a big slot, and the nice thing about signing a guy like Ingram, who's 30-year-old and still has some pretty good ball left, is that if they decide to go with a tight end in the first round this year, Evan Ingram is not going to detract them from doing something like that, especially because tight end is historically a position that takes a little bit of time to adjust to the NFL, and he's a really good middle of field possession guy while being a willing blocker. He's more of an Ertz than Kittle. Like, I remember coming into prospect season, a lot of people were just like, he has great yak, and then all they would show is like a nice clip of him stiff-arming a player, I think against Texas. And that clip was pretty good, don't get me wrong, but he's had 7 broken tackles throughout the past 2 years. So you're not drafting him with the idea that he's literally just going to run dudes over. He's going to be a chain mover above all else. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. Like, I think he's really, really good, and he's only 21 years old. So that's something that people need to keep in mind as well. I don't think any player meant more to their college passing game than Colston Loveland in 2024 because Michigan averaged 47 passing yards a game without him. That's a real stat. Michigan averaged 47 passing yards a game. So with Jim Harbaugh being such a run-heavy, defensive-oriented coach, they really didn't have a good passing ecosystem set up for when Harbaugh left. And that just really came to fruition this past year. The 2 games that Colston Loveland missed, 47 passing yards, that's just an absolute joke. But if you look at the 2023 film, it's just a lot better. I don't think the difference between the second and third round tight ends is really that substantial to Loveland to the point where I'd kick the tires on him in round 1 over the next 3 guys that I have on this list. But yeah, I still think Helm, Ferguson, Arroyo, they could all be really nice values for us. And we do need a better middle of field passing game in 2025. Loveland would help us out tremendously in that regard. And once again, when he can grow into the NFL and he can, grow into his body and eventually develop those skills, he'd give us a dynamic weapon. Number 3, Emeka Egbuka. So he's a high-effort wide receiver who embodies no block, no rock, and he runs awesome routes. He, once again, would be a great middle-of-field weapon for us. And it might be true that Sean Payton likes our current wide receiver room, but listen, we played pretty badly for a lot of 2024. Like, the first half of the year in particular was an absolute joke. We got a lot better down the stretch, but even in the wild card game, even in the playoff game, I felt like our wide receiver room played pretty poor in that game as well. But a lot of scouts really, really like Egbuka because he's a high character dude, and he would fit right in with the orange and blue because we have so many high character dudes and guys who love football. And he'd fit right in because, guys of his archetype have been so instrumental to our turnaround as a team. So if you were to get a guy who could, block day one and be, that kind of wide receiver, Sean Payton would absolutely fall in love with him because he's a high effort dude. He runs awesome routes. He can make great catches. So yeah, I think Emeka Egbuka is somebody who this coaching staff will fall in love with. And I think that he would mean more to our offense, at least day one, than Colston Loveland would. He would also help fix our intermediate passing game woes. I still think the tiebreaker for me here is I still just think that wide receiver or defensive line, spoiler alert with my next 2 picks, would be the smart picks, whereas running back and tight end would be the fun picks. And I know if you guys happen to catch open mic night last night on Marquee Sports, I basically went on a whole tangent about why wide receiver or defensive line would be the smart picks in round 1, and everyone was like, oh, so what we're hearing is you hate fun. You're the guy who grabs a Camry because you're smart and you don't like the flashy other cars. Like, that's how people describe me when it comes to this, but I do believe that it would be the best investment for our team. Number 2, Kenneth Grant. So we need a nose tackle. Our run defense got absolutely demolished by James Cook and Derrick Henry this past year. And there's only one area for the team to improve upon, but to be completely honest, it's a pretty substantial one considering against the high level and the high tier AFC teams, we already failed miserably. Now the Chiefs, they don't have a legit running game, or they didn't this past year with washed Kareem Hunt, so we didn't really need to worry about that. But Buffalo and Baltimore, that's a pretty, those are, I would say, pretty locked and loaded top 3 AFC teams right now. and we got demolished against both of them. So a true run-stuffing nose tackle would be the final piece to the puzzle for our defense, at least I think. And ultimately, we just need to get tougher and more physical against the best AFC teams. I think the Chargers are going to be really physical as well, and they just signed 6'8", 360 Mekhi Becton to be on the interior offensive line. So we need to get better. We need to get bigger up there too. And during those Buffalo and Baltimore games, I remember Nance and Romo, they just kept saying it and kept saying it. They just kept saying, well, the Broncos, they have a really good front. They led the league in sacks, but ultimately, if there is one flaw, it is that they are a tad bit undersized. I do think that upgrading to Greenlaw and Hufanga is going to make our run defense, especially on early downs, that much better. But listen, it's easy to find a large defensive lineman. It's easy to find one. Like, if we were to kick the tires on a guy like Desmond Watson in the 6th round, who's 464 pounds, that'd be absolutely fantastic. But it's rare to find a guy who plays the position as well as Grant. It's rare to find a guy who can offer you, great run stuffing while also offering a little something in the pass rush as well. I think Grant would be a great pick for us. But number one, the guy who I want the Broncos to draft at this current point in time is Derek Harmon. So Derek Harmon is just so disruptive. If you watch any game, he is just living in the opposing backfield. I'm a total simp for this dude. I'm a total simp for his game. And if somebody was holding a gun to me, it was like, all right, next 3 seconds, you have to make a pick in number 20 for the Broncos. I'm going Derek Harmon. And the reason I'm going with him is because he has great play recognition, great football IQ, block shedding, and elusiveness for an interior guy. And by the way, I know that a lot of people are going to bring this up. Yes, we led the league in sacks, but we only have one interior defensive lineman under contract for 2025 and beyond, and that's DJ Jones. So with Derek Harmon, you get flexibility with Allen, you get flexibility with John Franklin Myers. Even though I do expect Allen to get extended, having a partner in crime with him would be absolutely fantastic. One thing that really I loved about Derek Harmon is that he gave you phenomenal pass rush from the interior. Like, he rivaled some of the top edges from this class as far as pass rush win rate and hurries and all those pressure metrics as well. But he held a very strong anchor against double teams, and that's what we need. That's what we need, a dude who can just have the respect of opposing offensive lines, but also hold strong. And a guy as disruptive as Harmon, it would give us the best 4-man pass rush in the NFL. So with Benito, with Cooper, with Allen, and with Derek Harmon, yeah. And then you can let our secondary do the work. It's just going to be really hard for teams to be able to overcome that. Because if we were just able to wreck the interior in games, then you can do a lot of really good things when you wreck the interior. So now the question is, how do we beat the Chiefs? How do we beat them for the division crown? So the Eagles laid the blueprint, and the Eagles, they laid the blueprint to win the Super Bowl. 2 times over the past 7 years, they've stopped a three-peat. And the way the common denominator between multiple coaching staffs and multiple different cores of players is overinvestment into the pass rush. And how do we beat Kansas City? Well, we've literally seen it 2 Super Bowls now. You make Mahomes' life miserable. And with Kansas City going through offensive line turmoil, losing Joe Thuney, and not finding real solutions at the tackle spots, I think that that's how you are able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And we did a good job getting to him this past year, but ultimately our offense let us down, and special teams and our field goal protection. But I still think we're that close, and I think a guy like Harmon would just be able to put us over the edge with that as well. So that basically does it for me. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.